Okay, welcome to Unit 2, Lesson 3 of our Algebra 1. We are going to try to write equations to model relationships and model situations given a table. So that's our learning targets today, is to be able to use words and equations to describe patterns I see in tables or other sets of calculations. So when given a description of a situation, use a representation like a diagram or a table to help kind of make sense of it and then be able to write the equation of it. Sometimes we got to write some things down, make a table or whatever before we can get into the equation. So the first activity today, 3.1, is called finding a relationship. So here's a table of values, an X and a Y relationship. So your job right now is to think of some strategies that you can do to find how they're related, and then also be able to figure out what is the equation that would match this. So pause your video, think about that for a moment. Okay, hopefully you paused it and thought about it. So a couple of strategies that I believe hopefully you were able to come up with is you can look at a lot of times we want to look at the X and say, well, what did we do with the X to get to the Y? Did we multiply it by something? Did we add something to it? Did we subtract something from it? Look for just a simple, straight relationship. If that doesn't work, then you want to look for maybe, like a combination of things. It's like, well, is there something, what happens as X goes up or down, and what happens to Y? So for instance, X goes up by 2, Y goes up by 8 from 1 to 3. But then on the X from 3 to 5, X goes up by 2, but the Y this time goes up by 16. And then from 5 to 7, the X goes up by 2 and the Y goes up by 24. So it's not consistent. There's a pattern there, but it's not a consistent pattern right now. So there is a relationship, and it has something to do with taking the X value and squaring it. So I'm going to walk over here to the board, grab my marker that I can't find. Here it is. And my relationship for the Y is actually, it's going to equal the X value taken to the second power. And then what are we going to do with that? Correct. We would subtract 1 from that. So when we substitute the 3 in, for instance, the Y is equal to the 3 squared minus 1. That's 9 minus 1. And the Y is equal to 8. And that's what we have. And that will work for all of the other ones as well. So if I did the 5 squared minus 1, remember that's 5 times 5. So that gives us 24. That works for all of those. So that becomes the relationship. It wasn't maybe a real easy one to see, but it's, again, something to look for. So now in the 3.2 activity, you're to describe in words how the quantities are related, and then also be able to write we'll think about eventually writing the equation for it. So again, pause, think about it, and see if you can come up with the answer. Great, you're back. So as X goes up by 1, the Y goes up by 400. So is there something that we could do to the X number to get to the Y value? And hopefully you're able to see that if you take the X value and you multiply it by 400, you will get the Y value every time. So that becomes, multiply the X by 400 gives you the Y, or in an equation, Y equals 400 times the X. So go ahead and continue and do that with tables B, C, and D in the activity. And we'll be back in just a second. So pause it and do that. Okay, here's tables B, C, and D. B, as looks like it is, the Y value is going down as the X is going up. the C value, the Y is going up as X is going up. That's one of the relationships you want to try and look for. And D, as X goes up, Y is also going up, but they have some equations. So here's the basic formula. If you take 400 plus X, that's going to give you the Y value. That is table C. So that one's C. If you take the X minus 400, that gives you the Y. Wait a minute. What's the equation there? The X value minus the 400 gives you the Y. Oh, that's D. Yeah, sorry, I got lost a little bit on that one. So that would be D. The X and the Y add up to 400. That would be the table B. And then the multiplying, that was the one table A. Okay, and then on 3.3, again, we've got a relationship between the base length and the height. What is the relationship between those in a parallelogram? So as you're looking at that, trying to figure out how they're related. And it's kind of something that you do between the two of them. So you're going to write those out again. You want to try and come up with those first. So if you take the base times the height, you would get 48 every time. Base times height gives you 48. So that would be the base length times the height. We just write those each next to each other. Gives you the 48. Number 2, in the carnival. Again, you should do these before. I'm giving you this kind of the solutions now. Do them on your own first. Pause the video if necessary. I'm invited to guess the number of beans in a jar. The person who guesses the correct number wins $300. If multiple people guess correctly, the prize will be divided evenly. What's the relationship between the number of people who guess correctly and the amount of money each person will receive? So that would be a division. So if you would take 300 divided by the number of people who guessed it correctly will equal how much each person will get. There's different ways of saying that, but that's kind of the way I'm going to say that right there. And number 3, a half a gallon jug can fill 8 cups, while 32 ounces can fill 4 cups. What's the relationship between the number of gallons and ounces? Again, if you get stuck, try to create a table. So a half a gallon is 8 cups. This is gallons, cups, and then I believe it was ounces, right? So fluid ounces. So a half a gallon is 8 cups, and 4 cups is 32 ounces. So how many ounces would 8 cups be? Good, 64 ounces. So this is half of a cup. What's half of a half? Because we're doing half here. So half of a half is good, 1/4. So what's 1 gallon? Well, there's different ways to think about that. We could take these numbers times 4. We could take these numbers times 2. That would be 16 cups or 128 fluid ounces. So 1 gallon would be equal to 128 fluid ounces. All right, good job. Then we have the summary, and again, in the lesson that you have, you should have the summary. Please make sure that you read through those, looking at the additional examples that they provide, and like that one, and sometimes they'll give you definitions. So again, use those, and then you're going to move on and do the lesson or the quiz on the problems. Thanks for listening. Bye.